Okay. Hi, Katie. Is it okay if we use this, your story publicly,
Yes.
recording of your story publicly? Can you or anyone you mention face legal prosecution, get in trouble for anything you share?
No.
Good. Will you please spell your name?
KATIELOCKHART.
Uh, you'd think like that'd be easy enough, but I have fucked up. Like, damn. Um, and then, okay, so yeah, introduce yourself however you want. I'm gonna mute myself. I'll be taking notes during it, and the floor is yours.
What's up? I am Katie Lockhart. I am here to share my story of overcoming trauma and abuse. So when I was growing up, my parents split when I was about 1 year old. My dad was a very religious man and my mother was not. And so going back and forth, I questioned my reality and took tidbits of what I wanted to believe. And so it became a little bit confusing going back and forth. Now, growing up, I felt like love was conditional. I had to conform myself into someone else's mold in order to receive acceptance or love. And so it made me feel a lot outside of myself because I was pretending to be somebody else in order to get that love and that nurture. And when I was growing up, around the age of 16, because of how the divorce was, I spent a lot of my time with my mother and stepfather. But I didn't really know my father. And so I wanted to spend more time with him and not be moving back and forth so much because I never could get a grounding or settling. Every time that I got up and moved, I'd have to switch mindsets or brain, like the way that my brain worked, because it was two completely different lifestyles. And so I was always in this confused, chaotic state. And so I wanted to go week for week just to be able to get some ground, some normalcy, some structure. That's what I was like craving. But when I went through that process, is my parents did the best that they could, but because of, how should I put this? Because my parents made it a little bit more personal to themselves, that it created a lot of problems. And I started being looked at as the problem child, the troublemaker, the kid that always like caused chaos in the house, because I wanted something different than what they wanted me to do. And so I've been cornered and told that I couldn't think for myself, that I wasn't enough, that I was being bribed, but really in my heart, this is what I truly wanted. And so just because it didn't conform to somebody else's want, is I got this huge backlash, and I was told that I had to be fixed before coming back into the house. Now, whatever they meant by whatever this person meant by that, is the way that I understood it, is that there was something wrong with me and that I needed to fix something within myself in order to be accepted and welcomed into what was supposed to be my home and safety place. And so out of anger, I felt like I had to be the adult when I was the kid. And so it created so much anger and frustration. And I didn't know how to properly do that at the time. So I did these tantrums, but there's something so deep within me to always stand for what was right and what was wrong in my heart. I just didn't know how to properly do that. So I did become that troubled child that everyone viewed me as, because I had to just like scream it. I had to scream it out anytime that there was a family event and something that was wrong was being said. And so I'd stand up for myself because I felt like I was being cornered. I always felt like I was being cornered and looked down upon and belittled. I could do the exact same thing, exact same positive action as my siblings, and they would be praised while I was being just shit on. And so it didn't feel like anything that I could do was good enough. And that was the belief system that I started to create at such a young age, is that I would never be loved because I spoke from the heart and what I wanted. I thought for myself, and that was even looked down upon, that I was a free thinker. And that's very intimidating to people that want to control you or conform to you. And it became super confusing for me because I didn't really understand. And so I start questioning myself, questioning my worth, like questioning if I was even allowed to be accepted for who I was. And so I started to create these masks because they verbally said that I could, my parents verbally said that they would be there for me, but as soon as I tried to go to them for that comfort, for that love, support, it did the adverse reaction because they spoke with their words but not with their actions and feelings. And so it made me feel like isolated, like I was alone, that I had to do this alone, and that I had no one to really lean on me. And so that's when I begin to also not really trust people, because the people closest to me didn't even know how to properly be there. And so like I said, like I always felt like I had to be fixed. And so I kept on going back to that of trying to better myself, trying to do better actions, but I still was quite irresponsible, to be honest, because I was doing it out of validation. So when I got around 19, there was some abuse that happened throughout high school. I didn't really think much of it because like you just, I don't like, for women, especially with what I've been through, I've experienced a lot of like the cat calling, the like little like butt grabs, or like some domestic abuse stuff, but I just brushed it off because that was something that like was just something that you dealt with. But when I was 19, I was seeking so much love, like that's what I craved, and so I was in this really vulnerable spot where I didn't value myself. I didn't find that I was worthy, that I was just seeking this love that I was craving. And I ended up around this family that was like, when I put myself in that position, I became super vulnerable to people that are willing to take advantage and manipulate. And so I ended up around this family, and I felt like I couldn't really speak my true self anymore. Is that it didn't have power. It didn't have power, or no one would listen to me. And so I ended up in a position where some serious domestic abuse happened, and I was easily manipulated and blackmailed, and I knew it was wrong. I just didn't know how to get out of the situation because I was dealing with everything alone up until this point. And so I didn't know where to turn, and it continued to get worse and worse and worse until the point where I was I just started a new job. And so my trainer had asked me, and I was hesitant to even open up to him, but eventually I had to tell him what was going on, because I had to tell someone, because I was so hopeless. And I didn't know what to do. And I felt defeated, and I felt like didn't matter what I said or done or anything, that no one was willing to listen to me, was willing to help me, was willing to hold my hand through it and guide me and love me, even though I know that I was in this position that people only looked down at me for. And so it took a lot to be able to come out and share this with my trainer. And I didn't even realize how bad it actually was, how the situation was, because I was so used to mistreatment. I didn't value myself, so I didn't even recognize how deep of a hole I was actually in. All I knew is that I needed to get out. And so that's where I took my story to the police station to legally do something about it, because it was either that or it would continue to happen. I tried every single way to try to stop the abuse. I tried to say that, like, if he just stops now, then I'll just move on with my life. I won't do anything about it. I tried using, like, if this was happening to his family members or his daughters, what would he do? And he didn't miss a beat. He continued on with the abuse. And so it made me feel really worthless, so powerless, because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't say anything, do anything in order for it to stop. So I felt like this was the only option. And even then, I didn't feel like it was being taken seriously. I was going home to family and people around me, putting on these masks, because it felt like no one actually understood. They would try to support me, but it wasn't how I needed to be supported, because it felt like no one understood. It felt like no one understood. And again, I was faced alone in this battle. And so I'd put on these masks, pretending to be the old Katie, meanwhile going to the cop station every other day, trying to fight for my life is what it felt like. And I was still being harassed, threatened for months, even after reporting the abuse. And I felt angry with the people around me because the problems seemed so small. Meanwhile, I was dealing with this and not even receiving the love and compassion that I really, really needed at that time, or that support. But I realized that no one's coming to fucking save me. I was there on my own, and I knew what I needed to do in order to overcome this, in order to make something positive of it, because it was either I was going down one way or the other way. There was no in between anymore. There was either I was going to suffer with what had happened and let it define my life and allow it to suck me down, or I would make it the biggest blessing that I possibly could. But first I had to get through the crap. It was going to become harder before it got better. And this is one of the hardest things that I had to go through alone, but it ended up becoming the biggest blessing, because it taught me a lot about who I am. And it took a long journey to get there. So after the abuse, I won the case. I didn't feel that the station was taking it serious. So I even took that in my own hands of having to create a binder that was used in the court system. And he got sentenced to almost nearly 9 years. And most cases in my area, maybe if they're lucky, got 2 years or under. And so that was a major win, and it felt like I had a second chance at life. And that is when family members started to actually believe that, like, oh crap, something actually did happen to Katie. She's not just a troubled child that got herself in this position, because I was the one being blamed. I was the one being shamed. And I felt that. I took it all on myself. This is where deep, deep negative self-talk really began, because I blamed myself for something that was completely out of my control, even though I was doing everything to save my life. And so this is where even deeper mask came on because I didn't want anyone to label me as the victim, the trouble child, or Katie's the baggage, or that I'm the basket case. And so I did all these action steps to make it seem like my life was okay, that Katie was doing okay, which internally I was suffering. Internally, I was so disconnected to who I was because I was doing it out of hatred for myself. I did it because I hated the position I was in. And so I pretended like I was doing everything so good in life when internally I was so alone. I was so alone. And so I started to cope wrong, but I was able to catch myself and realize that years down that it was going to lead to something that I really didn't want. And so I got obsessed with personal development and down that route where I didn't quite understand it. All I knew is that it made me feel better and there was something right about it, even though I didn't fully understand. And so again, I fell into the same route of studying it, but not really applying a lot of it, and felt like a better person just because I was studying it. I had a lot of head knowledge about it. And so I became even more frustrated, more confused because I was doing all these positive actions, but internally nothing was changing. I was still suffering. I was still in pain. I was still alone. And I still wasn't like feeling the love and acceptance that I still craved. And so after years of what felt like just walking into a brick wall, I found a mentor, Wes. And there's something about his delivery that I knew that I needed. It scared the crap out of me because I knew that I'd have to go deep within and take the action steps to become the person that I knew I always was, screaming to get out, but it also meant that I had to take a lot of ownership, a lot of responsibility, become more disciplined, and someone that I would be really proud of. And that was even a scary thought for me because I hid in dark places for so long and got so good at lying to myself that I knew he was going to help me become so honest with myself. But it was exactly what I needed. It was exactly what I needed to come back, to reconnect with who I've always been inside, which is this badass woman that takes challenges with a smile on her face and able to overcome anything that comes in her way, and is proud of the person who she became. And so that is what he's really helped me do, is not just portray this lifestyle that everyone wants to put on, this fake facade of whatever it is, whether it's the fake eyelashes, this fake life, this fake action. And he's actually helped me become it by living it, by feeling it, by knowing it internally. And that is something that no one can take from you. And you are able to handle whatever life comes in your way. The thing is, life is not going to be easy, and it can either happen to you or you can create one badass motherfucker because of everything you've been through. And it's only you that gets to define that, nobody else. And you do that with your habits. You do that with the person who you choose to become in your life. So you can either fall back on that trauma of what happened to you to go towards what is easy and making an excuse, or you can choose that it becomes your biggest blessing and the most badass story that you can possibly make. And just know that life is not going to be easy no matter what. So you might as well return to who you've always been and live it with internal freedom, internal peace, internal ease, because you know that you've been able to tackle it. You know that you're able to handle whatever comes in your way. So I'm sharing my story now because I've promised in my victim impact statement when I was going through the domestic abuse that as soon as I healed myself, that I would share it with others that are struggling with the same pain. And I kept that promise. It's just taken a journey to get there. But here I am wanting to share with you that if you're in a dark place right now, you are able to get through it. You are able to create whatever life that you truly want to live. Don't let it be weights on you, but allow it to be a tool. Allow it to be something that you are able to carry with pride, with like just proud that you've been through hell and back and you still got up. So that is why I am here. This is why I am sharing my story, to let you know that it's possible for me, then it's possible for you too. So if you want to follow me on more about my story and how I can help you, then you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at K, the letter T, LOCK, HART 8, and that's my TikTok and Instagram. And you can also find me on YouTube, where I share in more content on Survive and Thrive with Katie Lockhart.
Woo!
I was sick.